Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 237 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We have a great guest today, Ryan Morgan Knight, a immigration practitioner who caught my attention because of his deep analysis of AAO decisions that he would release on LinkedIn. And he was kind enough to contribute an article to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine last issue about the H-1B category in particular of, in financial analyst position, I believe it was. So before we get started, I do want to thank our main sponsor, DocuWise, who's been a sponsor of the show and the magazine for the longest time. DocuWise is, the all-in-one form software, practice management software. Definitely something you should look at or take a practice run if you're thinking about, trying a new thing or starting some sort of case software. You get additional 10% off your annual plan by going to www.docwise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast. So that's definitely something you should give a shot. Now, speaking of the magazine, is out. Go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. Check out issue 4. We're working on issue 5 right now. If you're interested in contributing, shoot me an email about a topic that you'd like to write about. We'll analyze it and see what we can do and see if it fits you in. So just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com and we take from there. Now let's get it started. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad we got to connect. Now, what part of the country are you in, Ryan?
Right now I'm in DC.
Is that your base of operation?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. I'm from this area. I'm from Western Maryland. Spent a lot of time in, Maryland, Delaware, DC, Virginia, West Virginia. So this area is really home for me.
West Virginia as well?
Yes, that's actually where I went to law school.
Oh, neat. Okay. I worked for a judge who was in Virginia, and because I'm from West Coast, it's all the same to me. It's all like East, but I'm like, why is there a West and East Virginia? I'm like, well, there's the mountain trail that really cuts off the Appalachia, really just cuts off the two stuff. So are they different worlds, or is that exaggeration to say there?
No, it's two different worlds.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Well, how did you get into immigration law?
I just kind of fell in it, I guess. When I was in law school, we had to take a certain number of elective courses. And one of those happened to be immigration law. One of my friends in law school actually recommended it. So we both took the course together, and then we took the clinic together. So after that, I graduated in 2013, and there were too many graduating lawyers and not enough jobs. So if you were specializing in a certain field, the admiralty law or something like that, then it became a little bit easier for you to find employment. Immigration was one of those specialized fields that needed more lawyers. So doing the clinic after the class made sense because that helped me get my job once I graduated.
Now, in your course, because I've taught at law schools and I've talked to a lot of professors, a lot of times they focus on humanitarian removal kind of stuff. Was your course all around or focused on area in the clinic as well? What kind of stuff did you do in the clinic?
The clinic was pretty much 100% removal and family-based cases. So there wasn't any employment-based cases because of the, the pro bono aspect of it. They have to not be able to afford services. So businesses can't afford services, so they wouldn't necessarily qualify for our clinic. As far as the class, my class was actually taught by Professor Whitehill, who is a partner at Fox Rothschild, and Professor Virtue, who's Paul Virtue of the Virtue Memo fame, INS General Counsel. So they actually provided a much more robust understanding of immigration law. They did talk about the business side of it as well as family and humanitarian, and they also went over the history of how the immigration laws developed. So I feel like they taught a really well-rounded version of immigration law.
So what happened then? You got hired at the first place, or did you start your own firm?
Oh, no. I went down to Colombia for a few months to improve my Spanish. And then I got hired at a smaller firm in Richmond called Fayad Law, where I mainly did removal defense and family-based cases. I really did want to do more of the business immigration and less of the humanitarian and removal side, but that, I needed a job, and I'm eternally grateful to Fayad Law for hiring me.
Yeah.
It was a big relief for me.
And so eventually you moved. How did you do the transition to working on employment-based? Or what does your practice entail right now? What kind of caseload do you handle?
So right now, my practice is 80% employment-based immigration, 20% family. I really don't have a whole lot outside of that. Every once in a while, I'll take on an asylum or TPS case, something like that, but those do not constitute a large part of my practice. When I was at Fayad Law, I spent a lot of time in immigration court.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Frank with you, it was a whole lot of time out of my day to appear for what turned out to be 10 minutes for a master calendar. The drive up and the sitting in court. It was really, I mean, I give all the credit in the world to the lawyers who do that, because
it's tough.
Absolutely needed, and it's a tough thing to spend that much time not working. But from there, I tried to get my hands on any employment-based case that I could. I got my credentials up a little bit, so that when another opportunity for an immigration lawyer opened up at a firm in DC that solely focused on employment-based immigration, I was qualified for that position, and they hired me on. And then from there, I moved to a bigger firm that did volume-based work. And I was there for a year. And after that, I decided I'd go ahead and open up my own practice. I didn't actually start my practice until December 2019, January 2020. And 3 months after that, that's when COVID hit. So,
well, I really want to get into the transition, how you started your firm, because a lot of people are interested in that kind of stuff who are listening. But when you say volume, and what kind of volume, like, numbers are you looking at? How many cases were on your desk that you consider volume?
Sure. So I did H-1Bs, I guess, every day. Probably have to do between 5 and 10 assessments. So this company, it's a major company, has lots of people, and every time they're looking at hiring a foreign national, they send that over to the firm, and a lawyer like me would look at it and determine, is this a safe hire or not. So every single day, you had to do your assessments, and then in addition to that, every day you probably had somewhere between 3 and 8 H-1B cases to review before they went out the door. So that was kind of the volume side of it. It was every single day, hundreds and hundreds of cases that are moving out the door. And I only did H-1B. I mean, they had a whole separate team for O's and perms and all that stuff. So there was a significant amount of work.
What happened? You started your own firm. What was the impetus, and what difficulties did you have to launch it?
Well, the same friend who convinced me to take the immigration law class, as soon as we graduated, was very enthusiastic and wanted to open his firm and wanted me to join him or open my own firm. And I was very nervous. I didn't know I was going to make it work. I didn't have any clients. So, but, I guess I was practicing for 5 or 6 years before, I made the decision. It's like, I'm not big on the volume. I can do better for myself. And I was just lucky that I had the client base to fall back on. When I left and started my own firm, clients came with me, enough clients. Yeah. Make even COVID shutdown. I mean, I was unaffected. It didn't hinder my progress at all. Obviously, business development, I couldn't go to Chamber of Commerce meetings at, counties and things like that, but I had the client base to start. And I think that's probably what makes the difference between people who are going to be successful starting out and people who are going to really struggle to get legs under their firm. Just that 5 years of dealing with businesses and with clients, I kind of built my own practice organically before I had even started a firm.
Mm-hmm. And so you launched the firm, and how was it? I mean, was it what's different than what you expected to launch your own firm, or had you just gotten enough experience on how things operate that wasn't too difficult?
Well, running a firm is running a business, and it's a lot different than practicing law or any of my other hobbies. So that was definitely had a learning curve. Obviously, getting a fee number and incorporating is not necessarily that difficult, but figuring out the best case management and the best accounting software, how you're going to divvy up the money, making sure you have your IOLTA account for the client funds. I mean, all of those things are really important, and they take up time. Firm administration takes up a significant amount of my time every single day. A percentage of time is just going to go to making sure that the lights stay on.
Yeah.
So,
what kind of team are you? Full solo, or do you have a team right now?
Nope, I'm totally solo. I don't recommend that to starting a firm. It's definitely nice to have some sort of help, whether it be a paralegal or just an office administrator, or even if you're going to do something like WeWork and that there's someone that's going to answer the phone for you and collect. When I was at my previous, the Fayed Law and Haynes Novick, I didn't have a paralegal. So for 4 out of the 5 years, I had no help whatsoever. And at the time, I didn't like that very much. However, now it was very useful because I'm able to handle everything myself. I don't have to depend on anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I did it that way for 10 years and it was good, but then eventually I'm like, I need some help. But you save a lot of money that way. The overhead just comes down drastically by being solo. So it's worth doing a couple of years to build things up at the very least. But having like an idea of bringing team members, it helps. And I get older and I have kids. I'm like, well, something happens to me, these cases still go out. So that's a great thing about having associates and stuff. It's new for me. It's just last year I hired a first associate. And I'm trying to, keep growing from there. Yeah. So now you do more than H-1Bs. You do all sorts of cases, O1s and stuff like that too. What is like your go-to case type? Is it still H-1B, or I mean, this is more of a cap season kind of thing. But do you what's your other primary case that you like to do?
Well, the cases I like to do and the cases I get, like different things. H-1Bs are pretty standard fare. And because I spent time doing the volume work, H-1Bs are pretty easy for me to comprehend and to put together and to submit. So I get a lot of those. And then in addition to that, there's always going to be a perm down the road from an H-1B. So that's going to happen. And then they want the green card, filing green cards for the kids. Yeah. So I guess if I looked up at my case list, H-1B to perm to green card is probably going to be the thing I file most often. I particularly like artists or anything to do with the arts, whether it be museums or cultural exchange programs, artists in particular with O1s. I really like that. I wish I got more of those, and I cherish every one that I get because that's what I actually really like.
Yeah, those are my favorites, the EB1 extraordinary ability, except they take so much time. There's so much review and like that's just like it's so draining. But and then especially like I don't do O's, but there's just like people doing O's at like rock bottom prices. So I'm like, how could you even do an analysis of this case for this price or even break it down? So the marketplace for O's is really weird, and I'm sure there are apps and computer systems they're making try to like commoditize it a certain way. It's a weird area of practice, but if you get a client that appreciates what value you're bringing in, it can be a lot of fun, especially if they do interesting stuff and learning about their field. Yeah. So, I mean, one thing you do that's really neat that's, it got me into practicing immigration law better is really these AAO decision, what do they AAO stand for? Administrative Appeals Office. In particular, for me, it was L1s and EB. I used to read all of them, and then I narrowed down to L1s, EB1Cs, and now I just don't have time to read as much, but you essentially are reading all of them and taking notes. I'll just read them and have it in my memory, but you're like taking notes, so it takes a lot of time. And you're going to be release these already on LinkedIn, but you have articles on them on the best stuff in the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. Will be in the next issue as well. Any recent stuff you read about any categories that stood out that in your memory? I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't plan this.
I wouldn't say it especially things that really stand out. What I tend to do, so when I had more time and when AAO was issuing more decisions, so there was time in 2019, every single month there'd be 125 H-1B decisions, and just a phenomenal number. And I wait till the end of the month, I print them all out, I got a big old stack, and then I read through every single one. And if you're going to read through 125 H-1B decisions, there are definitely certain things that are going to crop up over and over and over again that are just burned into your brain. Don't require a business administration degree. They can have one, and you can work that in and make it work. But if you require one, how many AAO decisions do you need to read before it just becomes automatic that you will never, ever require this sort of degree unless you've really fine-tuned it to work. So when I go through, I guess the most recent ones that I did, or that kind of stick out, it seems like the O's and the EB ones are always tough. You have to really be at the top of your game for that. And so when you hit the 3 prongs, but you don't make the Kazarian analysis, I understand. O's, in my opinion, aren't supposed to be quite so stringent, but it appears to me that O's are getting a little bit more difficult. They've silently raised the bar a little bit for that, and they're kind of applying their own Kazarian analysis.
That's
specifically for the EB1. But now O's, you really gotta. Seems to me you really got to make that argument. I just leave that up to chance. National interest waivers, I'm finding the same thing. But it seems the standard has gone up a little bit in getting those. Otherwise, I really can't think of any new things.
But you said it, like when you read these, it's why it's so important. Certain things, some repeated mistakes pop out so much. Like when I read L1s, as soon as I read something, like, okay, I know why they're going to deny this right on page 2. Like this L1 was too vague. The cat, it's like 40% this, 50% this job category that they did. It's like these breakdowns of the percentage of type of work they're doing is too big, or it's too vague, too generic. Like, just kind of like the Matrix, you could like see what's going on in behind the scenes of these mistakes. And sometimes the decisions are not well thought out, but you kind of see like they'll pick sometimes something out, and they just don't like the case, and then they'll build a case around the fact that they don't like it. So it's like, okay, we don't like this aspect. I'm just going to pile on a bunch of stuff that's like, not really related, but just make it look bad. But the AAO decision thing is just making the decision to make an AAO appeal has been a controversial one in the last couple of years, because a lot of times in rubber stamping what USCIS does, or they'll just resend it back to USCIS and say, re-review it. And then you already waited 6 months AAO decision. The USC is going to take another 6 months. By that time, the gig is over, the business is out of business. It's like it falls apart. So refiling a lot of times becomes the way to do it, especially if pre and processing is available. It's not for NIWs, but I mean, technically it is now, even though the USCIS is not instituting it. The regulations allow it. But that's a kind of interesting, the pre and processing come about to speed up this kind of stuff. So we'll see how those are adjudicated. But
well, the H-1B, so for like the lotteries, they don't have that option. To file. Pretty much every other case, you can cut your losses and try again. But for the lottery cases, you only get one shot. And I agree with what you said. It does seem like a lot of rubber stamping. I'll give the AAO a little bit more leeway, only in the sense as you mentioned, they're more likely to remand the case, which is just saying, denied. But I really think that they had a whole lot of backlog to get that they didn't do, and because of that, I'm getting the impression that the decisions are shorter. If they don't have to address a certain topic because you didn't meet prong 1, so we don't have to go through prong 2 and 3. They're much more likely to do that. I mean, if you go back and you read decisions from like 2007 on any case, and there is no, we're not going to touch this issue because we've already denied your case. I mean, they'll put 14 pages and go through the entire case.
They'll add stuff. So like, well, the adjudicator didn't see this, but we're adding this extra one we found in there. And that's one of the best ways to learn too. Like, again, they add stuff. It's like, oh, that could be an issue too. They could come at it like this. And although you can't use the AAO as precedent decision, having that like library of, I try to save them if I read a good one, it's still a way to say, hey, listen, this is how you went in the past. It's not precedent, but this is what we're seeing. It's not consistent what you're doing. And I've read AAO decisions that are inconsistent with other AAO decisions before. Again, it's the L1 space. But it's a, it's a fascinating field. It's part of appeals, I guess. You can have an appeals practice just focusing on this kind of stuff. But you really got to know the law really well. Are you in that area? You really learn it by reading. It's a fascinating avenue, a tutorial or lesson that comes out monthly. It's free too. It's unbelievable. When I first started, I learned about AAO decisions, and I was searching the internet trying to get one at a time. I didn't realize there's a website that has all of them right there. So every time I get an AAO decision, I read it. I'm like, oh, thank God I found this decision. I can read it and learn. And then I was like, oh, there are thousands of them just sitting there for you to choose. And the USCIS.gov had updated the website on it during Trump's administration to make it really hard to find cases, but they fixed that and that went away. That was really frustrating because they're hiding a bunch of cases that I knew were there. I couldn't even bring up. So it was a weird time.
That's what I noticed as well, because I'm going to actually click on every single case and open up a new window and print it off, and then I'm going to make up the tally. I read 51 cases, and then I get that little chart they push out. How many opinions we did last quarter. And I read 51, and you're saying you have 65. Where the rest they're published on the website, they're not published. But I was advised, I guess, by Professor Whitehill when I graduated, because he knew that I wanted to do business immigration. It's like, well, the clinic, we don't really offer that because of the pro bono rules. So if you want to learn how to do a case, read the AAO opinions. Wow. If somebody gives you, they have a question, are they O1 caliber, for a software developer or something, go to the AAO, read as many O1 cases as you can. And figure out how to do an O, because no one's really, if you're not at a firm, when coming in as a junior associate and you have a mentor to come and help you, no one's going to be showing you how to do this. You're going to have to figure it out on yourself. So the AAO is extremely helpful for anyone who has a tough issue or is looking at a case they've maybe only done once or twice or never at all, and just go back through. I mean, something like the R1. I mean, I don't know how many times I've read an R1 decision where it says we've got to deny your case because you didn't submit the FEEN letter that shows you're a tax exempt, religious organization. No, well, we have it and we submitted on RFE. Like, well, no, you didn't have it before you filed the case, and you have to. So, I mean, that's an unforced error. And if you read enough AAO decisions on R1, you'll know never, ever submit your case without that FEEN letter first. Because if you don't have it, you're going to lose the case 6 months from now.
Interesting. I got an N600K case, which is like a grandparent essentially in this case. I got a whole group of these at once because an embassy in the Middle East started revoking all these children's passports, and they didn't obtain their citizenship properly. So we're doing all these N600 cases. So I went to download the last 30 N600 cases, started reading them, and you start seeing the consistent issues that pop up about different things. And so it's like, okay, checklist, get it, and then it really is the grace. It takes time. It takes a lot of time and patience. Sometimes you want to every time because I do the thing, I have 50 tabs open. I click it, I'm like, how many more is left? It's interesting to learn, but it's just so many of them you got to read, but it's jewels in there. It's like treasure that you can pull out. Yeah. So real cool. Ryan, thank you so much for coming. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way? Your website, your email, and any social media handles that you use?
Sure. My website's immigrationnight.com. If you're interested in any of those AAO analysis, they're always on there on my blog section. I'm on LinkedIn as well. My email address is ryan@immigrationnight.com. You call my office at 888-735-0560. I'm always happy to help with people. I don't generally charge for initial consults because I really like talking to people, and a lot of times I found out that I can't help you. You're in a situation where there's nothing that can be filed, but people just want to know, I got this problem, can you help me? And sometimes they may not want to pay $200 or $300, but I enjoy talking to people. So if they have a question or concern, I'm always willing to talk with people 15, 30 minutes and let them know what's going on.
Cool. And night, it starts with a K as in the knights, armored knights, that kind of thing, not the nighttime.
It does.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Stay on the line. So everybody can check out his wonderful article about H-1Bs. And the financial analyst job position. Also, check out the new ones. He's definitely going to have some great articles there. The Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine. Check out issue 4 and issue 3, 2, 1. There's tons of fascinating insight and information from probably, I don't know, 50 different colleagues who written articles at this point. We're going to have 50 more in the next year. So thank you for everyone joining us. Until next one, have a good one.